Hello, welcome. It is July 3rd or 4th, depending on where you are, and we are in ActInference GuestStream 110.1 with Takuya Isomura, discussing the triple equivalence for the emergence of biological intelligence. Previously, we had some discussions in the livestream 51 series when we visited Area 51 together, and we talked a lot about a double equivalence, and now the bar has been raised, the increment has been incremented, and this is a really exciting area that I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss and learn from. So thank you again for joining, and looking forward to the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Daniel, for invitation. So thank you for inviting me for this guest talk of Active Inference Institute. I'm very happy to share my recent paper on the triple equivalence. So let's get started. So I'm interested in the theory of intelligence in general. So maybe baby had no such high intelligence, but through learning, it obtained the intelligence. This can be modeled or understood in terms of the self-organization of neural network. So newborn neural network may not have enough information regarding the external world, but through some optimization, which is typically expressed in terms of the energy minimization, it achieves some obtaining of some good structure to recapturate the external world, which is the basis for prediction and making insight or making creativity. So we would like to model those emergence of intelligent function within the neural network through the energy minimization formulation. And so far, there are, to my opinion, there are three major pillars in the theory of intelligence. So intelligence occurs in the brain. So we model the brain using a network of neurons. And this is a diagram of electrical circuit. And similarly, a single neuron can be modeled like this. So this diagram represents a dynamical equation of a single neuron. And through some approximation, we can represent such a dynamics in terms of the energy minimization. So here, the dynamics that descend this energy gradient, energy landscape represent the time change of the neural activity like this. So this is a view from the dynamical system. Another view of intelligence is the computation. So it is well known that any algorithm can be expressed in terms of the Turing machine. Turing machine is a simple abstract machine that expresses the computation. So which involves a finite state machine that make some computation, and there is a long tape. So in the tape, some information is encoded. So like binary signals. And when this finite state machine read this information, it incorporate that information into this finite state machine header. So those components can be expressed by mapping shown here. So given the current state and readout information, it provides the move and the writing information and the next state. So this is a basic idea underlying the Turing machine. And interestingly, this simple computation is sufficient to express any kind of computable algorithmic algorithms. And another view recently focusing on is the brain as the inference machine. So brain is considered now as an agent that perform Bayesian inference. So this is an example of the Bayesian or statistical inference. So here there is some apple nearby the wall. By seeing that, we don't think that apple is wrapped in the shape of wall, but we guess that this apple is hidden by the wall in front of the apple. So this is a kind of inference based on our experiences. So this can be formulated in terms of the Bayesian inference. So Bayesian inference is basically defined by the equation called Bayes' theorem. So this is a Bayes' theorem that tells us the probability of state given. We can obtain the same solution by just minimizing energy, which is called variational free energy in the Bayesian inference field. So idea here is that so if we reduce the state, if we change the state to reduce diff energy, and then if it reach the valley of this energy landscape, this point represents a solution of Bayes' theorem. So instead of directly computing equation, by just minimizing the energy, we can get the best guess about the external world. And this process is expressed by like this. So this is the idea behind the theory called the free energy principle. So free energy principle, as you may know, a theory of the brain proposed by Carl Friston, which states that perception, learning, and action of all biological organisms are determined to minimize variational free energy. And by doing so, they perform variational Bayesian inference for external world. This animation is the one I often use to explain the free energy principle framework. So here there is a animal, which is our agent that infers the external world. And external world comprises observable information and unobservable information, which is a hidden state. And the task for this agent is to infer the hidden state based only on observable information. And by constructing some prior belief in the, by constructing the posterior belief in the brain, it can guess what is the current hidden state. And this can be done by minimizing the free energy. So idea is that if we change the posterior belief S to minimize this landscape, then we get the optimal solution, which is called posterior belief or posterior expectation. And this is the equation of the variational free energy. It comprises the prediction error term and entropy or complexity term. So to achieve this sort of inference, we also need to update the model itself. So this is done by update of the parameter theta. So in the external world, there is some mapping from hidden state to observation. So we imitate this mapping using the generative model. So by tuning this theta, our generative model is optimized to recapture the external world, and then we get the best guess about the hidden state. This is a mechanism underlying the perception. And the unique point of the free energy principle is that it can be applied also to the optimization of action. So here we consider we consider that there is some preference prior for this agent, and to achieve this sensory input, this agent can select an action from a given set. here there are three options. And this optimization can be done by minimizing the free energy in the external free energy in the future, which is called expected free energy. So expected free energy is a function of action. So by selecting the action that achieves the minimum free energy, minimum expected free energy, it can maximize the probability to obtain the preferred input in the future. So this is the idea, so-called active inference. So like this, free energy principle is a normative theory that can express both perceptual optimization and action optimization. But for neuroscientists like us, the most interesting point is what is the neuronal implementation underlying those inference. So we would like to show actual neuronal implementation of this sort of active inference. So to address this issue, we recently proposed equivalence, double equivalence between neural dynamics and Bayesian inference. So we start from evaluating the neural activity equation. So neural activity equation is have long history. So it have a clear biological background. So we consider that this is a plausible one. And if this equation is derived as a gradient descent of some energy function, we can obtain the original equation by just taking the integral of this activity equation and get energy, which is called Helmholtz energy. On the other hand, for Bayesian inference, once we define the model, generative model about the external world, we can derive the free energy functional. This is a variational free energy. And its minimization indicates the achievement of Bayesian inference. We show a mathematical equivalence between those two energy functions, which means that for any neural network in this class, there is an interpretation in terms of Bayesian inference. So we can, in general, see neural activity or neural network dynamics, including synaptic plasticity, as inference about the external states. So this is a more mathematical definition of our equivalence. So we characterize neural activity equation using some rate coding model, which is derived from realistic spiking model through some approximation. So its form is like this. It is characterized by inverse sigmoid Licht factor, and O indicate the sensory input from input layer. W is the synaptic weight. H is the firing threshold. And X here is a vector of neural activity, which is rate coding neurons, and its dynamics is given like this. And if this is given, then we can consider the original energy function by taking the integral of this activity equation with respect to X. And we get an explicit form of Helmholtz energy like this. Although it is a little bit complicated, it's just the integral of original equation. So not worry about that. Don't worry about that. And those definition of bar is here, and hat indicate the sigmoid function of W, and phi is a threshold factor defined like this. And interestingly, although this energy is purely derived from activity equation, the same energy provides the plasticity equation. If we take the derivative of this A with respect to W, then we get a Hebbian plasticity equation. So this is non-trivial, right? This is purely derived from this activity equation, but it also provides plasticity. Moreover, for Bayesian inference, once we define the generative model, we get the variational free energy. So this is the variational free energy under the assumption that the generative model have the shape of the partially observable Markov decision process, or POMDP. So if the external world is expressed as a discrete state space, then we get this kind of variational free energy. And its minimization provides the solution of Bayesian inference, which is a posterior belief about state. And we also obtain the posterior belief about the model parameter, so which correspond to learning. And what we say is that there is a formal equivalence between those two energy functions, in the sense that each component have a one-to-one mapping between those two. So S here indicates the posterior expectation about each state taking 0 or 1. So it is expressed as the block vector, just like the block vector of x and x bar. And this logarithm corresponds to this logarithm, and this A actually have the block matrix structure, which is exactly corresponding to this block matrix, and this operation in a product corresponding to this product of matrix and vector, and this log D, which is the state prior, is formally corresponding to phi here. So as a result, we can say that for any neural activity and plasticity in this class that minimize the common Helmholtz energy, we can lead those dynamics in terms of the Bayesian inference of external states. Okay. And moreover, this framework can be extended to the empirical application. So to apply the theoretical framework into the empirical data, we first record neuronal activity from real brain. And we assign those data into our canonical neural network, which is our network model. And by taking the integral, we can get the underlying Helmholtz energy, which characterizes the neural dynamics and plasticity. Moreover, we can estimate the parameter from data to characterize this energy function for specific for individual. And through our established equivalence, we can identify the generative model and the corresponding variational free energy from this A. And this works as a synthetic agent that perform active inference. So its derivative produce a learning algorithm or plasticity algorithm that update synaptic weight to adapt to the environment. And its time integral provides prediction about the learning process. So we call this framework as a reverse engineering in the sense that from neural activity data, we can get the generative model, which is a blueprint for the individual animals. So by doing that, we can get a synthetic agent that imitates the original animal's neural activity and behavior. So now we can make the examination of the free energy principle. So our idea is that, so we can do this based only on neural activity in the initial learning stage. So we record the neural activity before training and characterize generative model and make prediction of the subsequent learning process based on the synthetic agents that perform active inference. If its prediction is consistent with neural activity data recorded after training, then it indicates the plausibility of the theory underlying this synthetic agent. So if this is the case, then we can validate the predictive validity of the free energy principle and active inference. So this is the idea. So we apply this for we apply this to in vitro neural network cultured on a dish. So this is a neuron taken from rat embryos, and we culture those neurons on a dish that have 64 electrodes at floor. And we stimulate those neurons using designed sensory signals, so which is the electrical pulse. So to stimulate neurons, we design those stimulation pattern using two hidden states. So those are hidden states or hidden sources that is invisible for in vitro neural networks. So they can directly receive signals only from sensory stimuli layer here. So by receiving those mixed sensory signals, those neurons are required to infer the hidden state. So if it can infer the hidden state, then it supports the prediction of free energy principle. So we test that. And we found that actually some neuron responds preferentially to a specific source. So the prediction of free energy principle is correct in this setting. And we also statistically estimate the effective connectivity between those neurons and plot those trajectory. So synaptic weights change during the training. So we plot that trajectory onto the theoretically derived free energy landscape. So this is free energy characterized only by the initial data of this in vitro learning experiment. And we now plot the trajectory onto this. So this is the empirically estimated synaptic weight trajectory, which started from the high point of the landscape, and it reduced the free energy to reach the bottom, which is consistent with the expectation of the free energy principle that synaptic plasticity occur to minimize the free energy. So yeah, it's consistent. If this is the case, we can make synthetic agents that perform free energy minimization. So this is a result of the simulator that just exploit the gradient of this theoretically computed free energy landscape. So it is just a simulation without using data. Nevertheless, its result is highly consistent with actual observation, meaning that the theory has the prediction ability in this setting. So it shows the validity of the free energy principle. And then we extend our idea to action optimization, or active inference. To optimize action, we need to consider the modulation of Hebbian plasticity, because our action is changed based on the given reward or punishment. So classically, this sort of optimization of action is associated with the Hebbian plasticity modulation by various neuromodulator. One famous one is the dopaminergic modulation of Hebbian type plasticity. So it changed the time window of the STDP. So STDP here means the spike timing dependent plasticity, which is a sort of Hebbian plasticity. So dopamine changed drastically the window of STDP like this. We incorporate those effects into the plasticity equation. And we also consider two-layer recurrent neural network with the output layer to model the action of animals. So it is basically same model as the previous one. We call this canonical neural network. And one important characteristic of this canonical neural network is that all of those equations, both neural activity and plasticity can be derived from a single energy function, which means that there is a corresponding Bayesian inference characterized by variational free energy. So we again get the one-to-one correspondence between neural dynamics and Bayesian inference. Interestingly, this sort of neural network can perform maze task. So this is a typical delayed reward task. But by inferring the best action that obtains the maximum reward in the future, so which is, in other words, minimum risk associated with the future outcome. By doing so, this network can achieve the best action to realize this maze task. So far we show double equivalence between neural network dynamics and Bayesian inference. So in general, neural network, a canonical neural network that minimize some energy function by both activity and plasticity, it inevitably perform Bayesian inference, active inference in some sense. So free energy principle is such a generic, general framework to characterize this sort of biologically plausible neural network. The next step is incorporation of the algorithmic computation, because so far I discussed about optimization of perception and action, which is not completely generic intelligence form. So it is limited only for optimizing behavior to obtain, to minimize the future risk. But question is whether this framework can be applied to the emergence of a generic intelligence, generic algorithm. That's my interest. So to address this issue, we propose the triple equivalence. We show the triple equivalence between neural network dynamics and variational Bayesian inference framework and the Turing machine. So here we have two Turing machines. One is the internal Turing machine and one is external Turing machine. So instead of characterizing environment in terms of the generative model, we characterize the environment in terms of external Turing machine. But the point here is that such a Turing machine can also be implemented in terms of the probabilistic distribution, so which is actually expressed in terms of generative model. Moreover, because Turing machine typically deal with the discrete state space, so this is expressed in the form of POMDP. So we simply consider the POMDP with some external tape. So this is what I actually did. So to infer such environment, we have the Turing machine, which is basically have the same shape as the external Turing machine. And we show that this type of Turing machine can be implemented by canonical neural network. So idea is that, so we first characterize the canonical neural network in terms of the energy function like this. And we also characterize differentiable Turing machine in terms of the energy minimization. So if we write a Turing machine in some differential equation by taking the integral, we can again obtain the energy function. So, and through this process, we confirm that actually the energy function derived from Turing machine is equivalent to that for canonical neural network. So this happened because output layer of canonical neural network can be seen as a tape for Turing machine. And this operation, reading out and writing into tape, can be implemented in a biologically plausible manner through mental action that affect some change for the internal state, and the writing can be implemented by rapid plasticity of output layer synaptic weight. So through those process, we can implement a function of Turing machine, which is the reading and writing and state update. And header position movement is also implemented by the neural activity, sparse neural activity that expressed an address of the information. And once we get energy function, which is common for all component in the system, then we can say that there is a corresponding variational free energy. So we found that actually this sort of Turing machine formally correspond to kind of POMDP generative model. And again, this mapping from output to state posterior correspond to readout of the information, And if we rapidly change the C matrix, which is a policy matrix that determined our action, then this act as memory writing. So rapid change of policy can be seen as writing of information. So in short, what we show is that we characterize neural network in terms of the energy minimization. So it involves both neural activity and plasticity. Interestingly, this typical neural network dynamics can be read as both mapping of Turing machine and Bayes theorem, in the sense that, so this is an energy minimizing activity, and if energy is minimized with respect to internal state of neural network, then this solution can be seen as the solution of Bayesian inference, which is the Bayes theorem. And also, in this simultaneously, it also represents mapping, this mapping, which means that this network is not limited to infer the POMDP, typical POMDP in the external world, but also it can infer the Turing machine in the external world and imitate that function into inside the network dynamics. So it can imitate, mimic the external algorithm using neural network dynamics. So that's the idea. So based on this generic framework, we performed some demonstration. So this is a demonstration using other. So other means a machine that count up the number. So here we provide the input as the mnist hand digit. So actually this is only binary signal. So each becomes either 0 or 1. And this 16 binary number represents inputs. And the external Turing machine count up those numbers and memorize that sum into the tape. So this is what the environment works. Given this system, the internal canonical neural network, which perform active inference, can perform the imitation of these dynamics by receiving this 100 digit. It infer whether this is 0 or 1 through this layer, and the internal computation make addition of those signal into the previous summation of the which is stored in the memory, and the memory is actually implemented by output layer synaptic weights. So here by given the internal state, the middle layer neural activity, it sends some signal to output layer, which correspond to address of the information. And given this output layer activity generate action, this weight correspond to the memory in the tape, and it takes either 0 or 1. So by sending your signal header information here, it receives the memory information and it feeds back to the internal state. So this is how this network works as other. And writing of new information into the output layer is done by Hebbian plasticity modulated by risk factor. So this plasticity occurs in a rapid manner so that by receiving new risk, it drastically changes the synaptic weight either from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0, which is sufficient to implement the writing function of the Turing machine. So this sort of neural network can implement Turing machine in a biologically plausible manner. And this is a result of inference. So by receiving hand digit, which is noisy information, it can correctly infer the hidden state like this. And it successfully store the information in the output layer, which represents the summation of the number. So it counts up the input number and store that here. And through learning, the accuracy of inferring hidden state and memorize information, summed number is improved. So before training, the estimated number is largely different from the true number, but in these 4 sessions, which comprises 2048 steps, it achieves good inference. And this is a quantitative evaluation of prediction error. It decreases with time increase. And also this network optimizes its parameter by minimizing free energy, and the parameter estimation error decreases with time like this. Okay, this is a demonstration of algorithmic implementation and inference of external algorithm using canonical neural network. However, there is some limitation in this framework. So here we assume a predefined writing rule, which is implemented by risk function. So if we can design risk function, or which is corresponding to expect free energy a priori, okay, then we can train the neural network in an appropriate manner. But question is whether those predefined function can also be optimized through a biologically plausible process. That's our next question. To address that, we consider extension of our framework to the evolutionary timescale. So evolution occurs through the update of gene, and we associate that with the update of model. So we now extend the framework to the Bayesian model selection framework. So by updating the model, we get a better generative model, and based on that model, we update parameter through the synaptic plasticity, and then infer the hidden state and action through neural activity. And its result is evaluated, and then it's iterated, so on and so on. So we model this framework using extended Helmholtz energy, which is a function for a species, not each individual. So we now define the distribution of agent like this. So this represents distribution over observation sequence and gene distribution. So which characterize what kind of agent exists in environment. Okay, and what kind of information received is received by those agents. So we now consider the populations. So this is defined by adding some component to the individual Helmholtz energy defined previously. So this is Helmholtz energy we discussed, and we add here to some factor. For example, this represent the reproduction rate, which is the evolutionary fitness function. And this is the parent gene distribution, which correspond to prior distribution of the gene here. And this is entropy, but it is it represents posterior belief about the observation and the gene distribution. So it is analogous to conventional variational free energy, but now we also optimize the model. So interestingly, by taking the derivative of this or taking the variation of this functional, we get a solution like this. So this solution, of course, it has a meaning in terms of Bayesian inference, but it has another meaning. So interestingly, this solution, posterior belief, represents, is given as the product of evolutionary fitness function and marginal likelihood and prior gene distribution. And this marginal likelihood can be seen as the observation conditioned by the gene. So this result actually is equivalent to the solution of natural selection, simple natural selection. So now we found that by defining Helmholtz energy, which is equivalent to variational free energy, and minimizing that, we get the solution of natural selection in a natural manner. So this indicates that the solution of Bayesian model selection involves conventional natural selection. And this can be also understood by this inequality. So here it indicates that population level Helmholtz energy or variational free energy upper bounds this factor. So this is a negative logarithm of partition function z. And interestingly, under this framework, this partition function corresponds to the total of offspring number. So minimization of free energy provides the maximization of total of offspring number. So if this sort of agent want to maximize their offspring, then it's naturally minimize the free energy. So that's what we characterize through those equations. And we confirm that through this process, agent finally achieve, the species of agent finally achieve the good model for making inference of the given environment. So before the evolution, optimal gene correspond to some machine that is different from others. So its genes like this. So its operation provides a solution different from others. But through training, through evolution, only gene that achieve the operation or mapping, which is correct as other survived. And after sufficient evolution through 40 generations, finally, most agents converge to a machine that perform as others. So this is a result of Bayesian model selection, but it's more explicit, it's more actively select the best external world to achieve the maximization of offspring number. So it is called active Bayesian model selection. And through this process, estimation error decrease and also total number estimation error decrease. So it's showed a successful model selection by simply operating natural selection. And finally, I briefly mentioned about that. This framework can also implement universal Turing machine. So universal Turing machine is a little bit more than conventional Turing machine because it can imitate any other Turing machine. Although it's abstract definition, implementation is very straightforward. If we have two mental actions, one represents data reading and one represents program reading, then we can implement a universal Turing machine using canonical neural network. This machine can infer the environment, even though environment comprises 10 different machines. So given sensory input, it can guess which machine now generates sensory input and select best position of header for reading program. And by receiving a program written in tape, it characterizes internal computation in an adequate manner. So it's very flexible neural network. And given this program, it can imitate the current environmental machine through this process. And here, a different color indicate a different machine, and black color indicate the position of header that neural network inferred. So before training, inference is a little bit noisy, but after training, it success accurate inference. And by doing so, parameter estimation error and model selection error decrease, and subsequently state prediction error also decrease. So it successfully imitate 10 different machines in the external world only in the single neural network architecture. So in summary, we show that the dynamics of canonical neural network that minimize shared Helmholtz energy can be cast as minimizing variational free energy. So it's basically perform active inference in general. And canonical neural network with mental action and rapid modulated plasticity can implement Turing machine in a biologically plausible manner and perform variational Bayesian inference of external algorithm, which is expressed by a Turing machine. And if we extend Helmholtz energy minimization to the evolutionary scale, then species level Helmholtz energy minimization involves natural selection. So that process can be naturally derived from minimizing energy, providing a possible explanation for the emergence of generic biological intelligence. So finally, I just briefly mentioned that those programs, I mean, MATLAB or Python codes are all available at my GitHub page. So if you are interested in, please check that. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. A lot to cover there. For people watching live, they can write a question in the chat. I wrote down a few as well. So I'll just sort of start in no particular order. Are we seeking to find pairwise transformational edges and then maintain overall network equality through transitive properties? Or do you see these different equivalences as arising from a more general form or notation?
Thank you for your question. So can I see that comment? by myself, I
Yes.
mean,
Yep. Give me 1 second.
yes. Yes, first part is a little bit complicated to me. So pairwise, oh,
When you did the work in the double equivalence and now with the triple equivalence, do you seek to find pairwise strong relationships and keep everything equal through the transitive property? Or do you think that there could be a common representation that has more of like a hub and spoke topology with a common underlying format that then is connected to each of these domains?
So I'm not sure if I'm correctly understand the question, but unlike double equivalence, which is correspondence. So in double equivalence, all neural network property, as long as it minimizes shared energy function, it is always Bayesian inference. So there is a set of Bayesian inference. It is very general. And there is a subpopulation, which is biologically plausible Bayesian inference. So all of those subpopulation is involved in the generic Bayesian inference. So if we design neural network that by considering the energy minimization, then it always is involved in generic Bayesian inference framework. On the other hand, Turing machine, or in particular, universal Turing machine is special one. So not all Turing machine works as a universal Turing machine. So we may design some random network or random machine, and we can say this is a Turing machine. It's not. It's not. I mean, it's in some sense correct. In some sense, it's correct, but it's not useful so far. I mean, universal computation, Turing completeness means the computing machine have sufficient ability to deal with algorithm computation. So yeah, that is something outside. So what we are now thinking is that there is a group that achieved the Bayesian inference, and there is another group that perform the Turing complete computation, and there's some overlap here. So if we focus on that would be interesting to consider the emergence of high level intelligence. I don't know.
Okay. Awesome. All right. I'm going to paste into the chat so you can see it. I just wanted to read this this quotation from a
right. I double check that, and yeah.
Okay. This is from a 2017 article by Andrei Karpathy called Software 2.0. And so he wrote, I sometimes see people refer to neural networks as just another tool in your machine learning toolbox. They have some pros and cons, they work here and there, and sometimes you can use them to win Kaggle competitions. Unfortunately, this interpretation completely misses the forest for the trees. Neural networks are not just another classifier. They represent the beginning of a fundamental shift in how we develop software. They are software 2.0. And then a later section is, it turns out a large portion of real-world problems have the property it is significantly easier to collect data, or more generally identify desirable behavior, than to explicitly write the program. Because of this and many other benefits of software 2.0 programs that I will go into below, we are witnessing a massive transition across the industry where a lot of 1.0 code is being ported into 2.0 code. Software 1.0 is eating the world, and now AI, software 2.0, is eating software. So, how do you think the kinds of analytical and empirical results that you are yielding might play into how we think about software engineering and designing different kinds of intelligent systems?
That's a very interesting question. Yeah. Right. So, so a sort of neural network I'm working on is yeah, largely different from the state-of-the-art deep learning machines. So we are more focusing on how the real brain, how real brain works when it's doing some computation or making decision. And yeah, although the large gap between the neural network model in computational neuroscience, which is too simple, and state-of-the-art AIs. So we think that if we want to examine whether what we are doing is correct as the model of the brain, then what we are doing have meaning, because so when we want to do some task for animals, non-human animals, only they can do this just a simple task. And to my belief, to my experiences, most of those tasks can be implemented by simple POM-DP architecture, and some require some extension. But basically, what we are dealing with here is sufficient to characterize what animals are doing in a system neuroscience sense. So yeah, beyond that, we may be able to consider some more functioning neural networks through our strategy, but it is not soon. So we need yeah, many other validation before going to that step.
What does the reverse engineering, as you have it in the GitHub or as you imagine this developing, what does it yield that a systems biology assessment wouldn't?
You mean what is sorry, can you rephrase that?
Yeah, what do we gain and learn from the reverse engineering
Right.
that just a circuit level dissection doesn't provide?
Yeah. So circuit level dissection basically provide us static information, right? Information about architecture, neural population at that point. So we see snapshot. So what we are interested in is more prediction things. So through reverse engineering, we get a generative model which has so it has learning ability. It itself is agent. So instead of making connectomics or making some the characteristic of static neural network, we can characterize the dynamics of neural network in terms of generative model. It provides us a prediction of a long-term future after some learning. So which is completely different from what conventional system neuroscience does.
Okay. Another question, I put it in the chat. So how do we reconcile the traditionally, essentially error-free nature of Turing machines and digital computation with the more fundamentally probabilistic nature of neural and Bayesian systems? Like part of the reason why the symbolic architectures are useful is because they can be used deterministically. So are we seeking something that's deterministic or probabilistic?
Thank you for asking that. So it is related to our demonstration using others and 100-digit numbers. So 100-digit are your noisy stochastic information. And once our network extract the hidden features from such a stochastic information, then hidden layer is becoming more deterministic in the sense that if we accumulate sufficient information, the POMDB model becomes either 0 or 1 state, right? So in that case, the state transition can be very deterministic. Of course, in general, we need to deal with the stochastic environment, but yeah, sometimes either likelihood matrix or transition matrix can be deterministic, and under that situation, our machine provides very accurate prediction about current state or future state. And moreover, although a conventional naive Turing machine is very deterministic or discrete, but differential Turing machine incorporate the current continuous dynamics and the discrete Turing machine. So it is a Turing machine that is expressed by the differential equation, and we extend that idea to the energy minimization in the sense that differential Turing machine of us is derived as the gradient descent on some energy. So this dynamics is something between the discretized symbolic computation and continuous dynamics. And based on the condition, just like inverse temperature parameter, we can shift that dynamics both to discretized symbolic computation and continuous dynamics. That idea underlying what we are doing.
Great. Okay. So, in computer science theory, the halting problem, or Turing's halting problem, is the description that, or the problem that the description of a computer program and the input, you cannot determine whether the program will finish running or run forever. So if we can make this kind of software 2.0 neural network representation and or like this software question mark with the Bayesian interpretation as well, are they also bound by some of these constraints? Or do you think there could be some angles of approach where problems that are not solvable in a procedural computational framework could be approached probabilistically and vice versa?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, the simple answer is I don't know the exact answer, but so I try to make my opinion. So yeah, first of all, although we consider some neural network that perform Turing machine, so it is still in the framework of Turing machine or Turing thesis, in the sense that what we are doing is just computation based on algorithms, right? Even though we are designing very realistic brain model comprising Hodgkin-Huxley spiking neural network, so it isn't just an algorithm. So it is implemented in terms of Turing machine. So in that sense, nothing different. But it means that we do not solve the halting problem. So our network can conclude whether this program is finished or not. However, we can guess whether this is a good strategy or bad strategy. So one interesting difference from the conventional Turing machine is that our neural network works in real time. So time is passing during computation. unlike Turing machine, a conventional Turing machine. So which means that if we select a bad strategy that does not stop during the meaningful time frame, then that animal, that synthetic animal, die or eliminated through the natural selection stage. So survived species should be should have some meaningful function, meaningful algorithm that works in a realistic time frame. So yeah, that works as some debug or selection of algorithm. So that is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the connections with the neural Darwinism are very interesting, and also the open-endedness of successful life. It's like those are the programs that haven't halted, and you don't know whether the environment could change, and they could all of a sudden die. But what you know by observing their existence is that they haven't halted yet. So it's like, one sense, they're able to carry out a computation in plausible time. And on the other hand, their persistence as a species, as a population, is still running. So how will you proceed from here? What directions do you plan to follow?
The plan, yeah, the plan involves some emergence of a new algorithm. I mean, yeah, algorithm. So now we have mean to implement, represent arbitrary algorithm within the neural network architecture, which is corresponding to extended POMDP. And what now we are interested in is whether the function that can the function those network can do is only limited to imitation of external world, or it can do something different from the simple imitation of external world. So if the internal algorithm itself has some new meaning, then that would be more interesting.
What would that look like, or how will you explore that?
Yeah, it's a difficult question.
And what can happen within a fixed topology of a Bayes graph or neural network or program information flow, and then what is possible when the structure of the network changes? Because there's a space of semantics that can be explored with the quantitative variation just through the weight updating, and then there's another shell of possibility based upon topological change.
That's true. That's true. So, for example, now we do not involve structural plasticity within lifetime, but the model selection done by update of gene involves the change of the size of network. By changing the gene, we can freely change the number of neuron involved in network, or whether it is a 2-layer or 3-layer, like that. So anything can be characterized by gene, and its selection means the model selection from the very various model types. So I mean, yeah, in principle, we can consider many things, but question is whether it is plausible. I mean, intuitively, it requires very high computational cost. It is something like a random search in the huge binary space. So as you may know, combinatorial optimization takes exponential time. So question is whether animals do that, or animals know better searching algorithm or animal avoid to do that and yeah, have another solution. So yeah, that kind of things is very interesting to me.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to add?
Um, yeah. So although I'm not fully sure whether we can validate the Turing machine, a relationship between Turing machine Bayesian inference and neural network using real data. At least we can validate the double equivalence between neural network and the Bayesian inference, and we can be extend something to the evolutionary direction or Turing machine direction. So yeah, I think as the neuroscience, I think I'm a theoretical neuroscientist. So as the neuroscience, we need to do both development of the theory and validation of theory. They are interact with each other. So I'm very interested in both sides. And if you are interested in this sort of research, I'm very happy to working with you.
Thank you. Last question. Do you think there's a fourth player at that
Uh,
intersection?
yeah, that that's very interesting question. So, so one thing which I'm used to be interested in is consciousness things. So yeah, many people nowadays interested in consciousness, and there are several theory of consciousness. But as long as I know, those three pillars, neural network, Bayesian inference, and Turing machine algorithm computation do not involve consciousness idea. So I want to ask some expert that whether consciousness can be involved in those framework or it is different from those framework. Maybe that can be a fourth pillar.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much for joining. It's exciting to see how things have developed with the empirical work and this new theoretical layer as well since a few years ago. So, looking forward to where you take it from here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.